Okay. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead.
Today's shir, and I believe the shir for this week, is being sponsored by the Feitach family, liluy nishmas of Shmuel ben Moshe, whose boy yartzeit is tonight, and by the Alter family, the nishmas, our dear friend Philip Alter Pinchas and Menachem Mendel Hakohen, and he was such a special guy, Philip. One thing about him is that it always strike me is he believed in what he believed in, and he stuck with like the Satmar Rebbe said when the Baron Kut was nifter, shvach shalar shaloshina. He took his positions and he stuck with them and he defended them.
However wrong they were.
Are you referring to the Satmar Rebbe or to Philip?
Okay, I'm not going to divulge that.
The chus hayagin aleinu, he should be a chus for us. He should be a chus for his family, and should be a melos yosher for us in our kehillah. We should be able to get. We should be able to be zeichet, as Shmuel says, to the samachti v'oimrimli beis Hashem nelech.
I want to say something. Philip. Two things that I remember. Well, he was actually my lawyer. He was our company lawyer. Well, he took over after Harry Wolf. But two things I want to say about Philip. One is, they were going to pull the plug on him. And this is like how our rope goes to, is so stark about trying to, keep people alive. And they ended up not pulling the plug on him. And he lived for a few more years. He was able to put on tefillin. He walked his son down to the chuppah. He walked, his oldest son down to the chuppah. Now that's one thing I remember about him. And I also remember about him was when he was in the hospital. I remember your brother-in-law, Shlomi Aaron from Shalom, going to visit Philip on Yom Kippur. He walked to the hospital to visit him.
Wow.
Anyways.
Wow, thank you.
And Philip, I think, smoked till the day he died. He never gave up smoking.
Probably.
But a real trooper.
Probably.
Dave is smiling.
I mean, he lost the leg, and just like till they were able to, all right, okay. He was able to walk his son down
Philip
down
was
to the
very early. You're right. He believed whatever he believed in. He believed it.
Yeah.
And he was very early.
Yeah.
I remember he used to love debating with yeshiva bochum. So I remember him waiting out there in the Polish, right outside the shul. And when I would come to shul, he'd always want to engage me in conversation. And he was always a very good conversationalist. And he would love to debate. So I remember sometimes he used to sneak it around to the other side so that I could get in on time. Because he used to love debating. He was phenomenal. One
of his complaints against yeshiva boys, because those who came to Baker's Terrace, I don't know if Avigdor, do you remember him? You remember him. So he would chastise the Spiegel boys for wasting their time with sports. He says, if you're going to battle, read Kant, read philosophy. What are you wasting your time with sports for? Tomorrow, by the way, we'll speak a little bit about Mr. Feintuch, for those who remember. I know
we're having l'chaim.
We'll have l'chaim now. Everybody brought a l'chaim. Shlomi, did you bring l'chaim? L'chaim. First before this year, l'chaim.
Shlomi, I remember your father, how beautiful you used to daven.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're a chip off the old block.
Unfortunately, it didn't travel down.
So you became a manager for Tfilis. That's already a step up. Some daven and some manage.
Critic.
What are you talking about? Shlomi davens beautifully.
Yes.
And he always helps about Tfilah too. When everyone's trying to catch up and sing Psukah de Zimmer by Shachris, Shlomi's always there to help the guy sing Shalom. And sometimes it's a futile attempt. But Shlomi always helps, so we appreciate it. Good talk, everybody.
Yes.
Now we can start the recorded part of this year.
We did already. We got that.
Okay, geweldig. Zok the Heilige Gemara. So we've been talking now about people watching their Rebbeim. Reb Zeir was talking about how he watched Ravo go into a bath and he wasn't sure if he was swimming or not. So we're on the subject of Reb Zeir analyzing the customs of Ravo. So we're going to get to a different custom. If anyone goes to the mikveh, they probably noticed that by the Hasidim, they always, before they put on their underwear on the bottom, they first get dressed fully on top. They put on their shirt and their tzitzis, and only then do they put on their underwear. I don't know if
why is it only Hasidim? Not only Hasidim. That's the halacha.
You're right.
But
You're right. The reason why I say
are
only Hasidim is because I'm not sure how it works. If you don't wear your tzitzis over your shirt, if you wear it under your shirt, I'm not sure exactly how you do that. But we'll discuss it soon. And I'm going to want to hear H's because it's something that I've always struggled with. But let's get to the Gemara and we'll see. When he would go into the bath, he would cover his privates. I was never able to get that close to see if he was actually touching himself with his hand while he was covering his privates. Zok the Gemara, of course he didn't touch it. The Tanya Reb Eliezer Eimer, Kaloiches ba'ama umashtin, anybody who holds onto his amma when he goes to the washroom, ki'ilu mevu ma b'lo'ilam. And Rashi says, because it leads to chamimos, which could lead to hatzar zayla v'tala, which is one of the averis that caused the mabul. It says kihishchas kol basar zayra. And I always touch, but the reason why it says Kaloiches ba'ama is wishful thinking. Omer Abaye, asu kabulshis. The reason why it might be mutter is because it's treated like a bulshis. A bulshis is an army that comes invading a town and takes everything. My grandmother told me she remembers in Romania when the Russian army came, they literally came like a swarm of arbe, like a swarm of locusts. They literally swept through the town, and they were so hungry and crazy that many people in her town, in Romania is known for their wines, and many people in their town had barrels of wine in their basements. And what the Russian soldiers would do, rather than open up a barrel properly to take a glass of wine, they just shot the barrels. And there was wine flowing out of the barrels from their gunshots, and the aroma was so strong, it would cause them to faint. And she said in her city alone, in her village alone, hundreds of Russian soldiers drowned in 4 inches of wine because they passed out from the strong aroma of the wine. And then as the barrels emptied out, their faces were submerged and they died. If a bulshis comes into a city, if it's a peaceful time and the soldiers are not running and they're not nervous and they're not panicked, then any barrels that were open are ulcer, because you can assume that these soldiers not only took wine, but also was menasach from the wine lavoy desora and answered the barrel of wine. But the sumos, if they're sealed barrels, mutaris, because they didn't open them up, they didn't touch them. But b'shas mochama, if they're in wartime, where they're very nervous for their lives, then edel beidel mutaris, even the open barrels are mutar, and even though they might have drunk from it, we can assume for sure that they didn't pour any type of desire. You know why? You know, it's unlike Hedon, where when we're in stress, we're davening to Hashem. They tell their getchka, you know what? I don't got time for you now. When things are calm, I'll have time to deal with you. Right now, I'm busy fighting a war. Alma, you see, even the you see the tendency of people that when they're very nervous, they don't do what they would normally do without it because they're distracted from whatever they're doing by their fear. Maybe he did touch his Alma, but it's not a problem because it wouldn't lead to anything. It wouldn't lead to kishur or anything because he's nervous. What's he nervous about when he's going to the mikveh? He's going into a river. He could slip. He can get washed away. So being that he's being very careful and he's focusing on the nahar, maybe there wouldn't be such a concern. And that's why Reb Zera had a legitimate suffix as to what his Rebbe did. In fact, are you suggesting that he covered his bris milah? If someone covers over his bris, Rashi says, it seems like he's embarrassed from his bris. A person should be proud of his bris. Even Avram said, so how can you say that he covered it? When he was going down to the mikveh and people didn't see it, then, and there's no tznius problem, because he's going towards the mikveh, there he should leave it uncovered. Haki Solok, we're discussing when he came out of the mikveh, and Rashi says, a fun of klapei mutter mishum tznius, al tznius, it's mutter to cover it. Kihad the Rava Shochi. Rava bent down, and when he bent down, it covered over the area. I know if you have a pot belly, it works very well. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly how it works. Reb Zera would stand up proud, but Rabbanan Devei Ravashi, they split it. Kikanachsi, when they went into the mikveh, so their back was facing the crowd. Zakri, they stood up straight because there was no issue of tznius. Kigasolki, when they came out, Sachi, they bent over, so it shouldn't be it's so obvious al tznius. So I want to ask Moti. I always thought that if when I get dressed, since I don't wear my tzitzis over my shirt, so my tzitzis end up exposed down there. So I like covering it up down there first. But if I wore my tzitzis over my shirt, there would be some level of protection because my shirt doesn't just go to my waist; it hangs down a little further and covers the situation. So I'm not sure what the right thing to do is. But Moti, you're telling me even for people who don't put their tzitzis
I don't know. That's what I was taught always. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe that's why you go in yeshiva in Philly. In Philly, they wear a towel. Everything like the Litvisha guys wear a towel around.
That's right.
I never heard that you're supposed to put on your underwear last.
Your bottom.
You're supposed to dress from top down to bottom.
That's right.
Yeah, the halacha is
you're not supposed to be rushing to cover your bris milah.
Never heard that. All right.
Depends who's in the mikvah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Gemara weiter. Reb Ashi Kikanachsi. I'm sorry, I'm ahead. Now we have a new story. Reb Yehuda was an Torah character guy, and he held that you were not allowed to live in Eretz Yisrael. Reb Zera was an Agudah guy, and he felt you are allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael. And Reb Zera was planning to make Aliyah, and he was afraid that he would run into Reb Yehuda, and Reb Yehuda would tell him you can't go. So he was avoiding Reb Yehuda because he didn't want the Rebbe to prohibit him from going to Eretz Yisrael. So Reb Zera have a kamishtamit with Reb Yehuda. He was avoiding Reb Yehuda. Why? The boy of Mezek l'Ar Yisrael, and the Amar Reb Yehuda kol ha'olam mibavel Eretz Yisrael over b'asei. He holds if you go up before Mashiach comes, you're over nasei. Why is that? Shenemar it says in the pasuk, bavelo yavayu b'shamayu. So the pasuk says, bavelo yavayu that we brought to Bavel, b'shamayu. You should be there ad yoim pakti yosam no Hashem, and then v'halizim v'ashivosim al hamakom hazeh. So Rashi tells us that we learned Pshat that's going on the Kalim. They took many Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash, and those Kalim are going to be there until Mashiach comes. But us, Avada, we're allowed to go back there to Yisrael. So that's what Reb Zera held, but Reb Yehuda held you know how to go there to Yisrael. But he loved Reb Yehuda's Torah so much, and he said, before I go, I want to hear one
Balaam came back. Balaam came back to Bayis Sheni.
What's that?
They were brought back to Bayis Sheni.
Aha. So maybe, and after Bayis Sheni, they weren't captured again?
Yeah, but not by...
Right, so whatever you see for sure...
They're all in Rome.
They're by the Romans. They were captured by the Romans.
They're all in Italy, in the Vatican right now.
So right now, Reb Yehuda held that every time we're in Golos, there's an issue for us to go back. And Reb Zera held that our Kalim are on captivity, and eventually they'll come back, but we're allowed to go. So he said, I can't contain myself. I have to go hear one last shear from Reb Yehuda. But I'm not going to go to the Besmedrus because there I'm going to get caught. And Reb Yehuda's going to say, where are you going? So I have to do things in a different fashion. Ezel v'eshvina milsa. I want to hear something good, a gewaltige shtickle from my Rebbe. You know, the Satan Rebbe, we know, was a Torah character. He was anti the state of Israel. And he had a chussid. There's two chassidim, there are two stories that he had a chussid who became a Mizrachist, and he moved to Israel. He made Aliyah, and his name was Lazer. And when the Satmar Rebbe made a trip to Israel at the end of his life, there was a big Kabbalah spelling for him, and even this ex-Satmar chussid who now wore Kippas Regah, he wanted to go say hello to his Rebbe. So he went over to his Rebbe, and he said, Rebbe, it's me. So the Rebbe said, oh, it was Machsh the Lazer is. It's so nice to see you. So he says, Rebbe, Achshav lo koren li Lazer, Achshav koren li Eli, because that's his Israeli name. So the Rebbe said, yeah, azoy vi in zogen jeden Tag in Yivul Etzion, Uvul Etzion Goyal. It came to Eretz Yisrael, werd men Os Lazer. So you have to understand Yiddish for that. Goyal, a redeemer, is an Os Lazer, but he used it on a play of words. And then the other story was he had a chussid whose name was Mechul, and he also became a Mizrachist. He became a modern guy, a modern Orthodox guy. And the Rebbe met him, and the Rebbe said, "Oh, it's Machs Mechul." So he says, "Rebbe, my name now is Michael." So he says, "Via Machmir seid ihr sicher nicht los." Okay, Dr. Gemara weiter. So he wanted to hear something good from his Rebbe. So Ozal, where did he find him? He found his Rebbe in the mikveh, in the bathhouse. That's where he found him. Here, maybe his glasses will be off, and he won't be able to see who I am, and then I'll be able to hear Torah from him. Yet he won't recognize me and tell me not to go to Eretz Yisrael. And he heard how Rabbi Yehuda was telling his attendant, Havili Nesser, bring me some. It was their version of soap. It was their version of shampoo. Bring me some shampoo. Havili Misrek, bring me a comb. And then he said, Pischu. So these two things he said in Lashon HaKodesh. And then he changed his language to Lashon Aramis, to the language of the people there. And he said, Pischu Pumaychu. He told the Shamas, open your mouth, Va'afiku Havla, and let your hot air out. Okay? The Ashtu Mimaya, the Bevani, and drink from the mikveh. Did you ever go into the mikveh and see all that dandruff in here and say, I got to take a drink of this? Go into the mikveh and take a drink. Omar, he said, so Reb Zera got so excited with these things that Rabbi Yehuda said that he was ecstatic. And he said, if all I heard was this, what my Rebbe said, Dayi. He said, this is unbelievable. So the Gemara wants to know what's so special about what he heard here from Rabbi Yehuda. Bishlam Yivu Neser, Yivu Masrek, Bishlam, what he learned from those two statements that Rabbi Yehuda made. Kamashmon, he understood that Dvorim Shel Choyel Mutter L'Amr B'Lashon Kodesh. You're allowed to speak Lashon Kodesh if you're speaking about mundane matters. You're not allowed to speak Divrei Torah. But if you're discussing general matters, the language that you use is not restricted. You're even allowed to speak in Lashon HaKodesh. And Rabbi Yehuda purposely said those things in Lashon Kodesh to make a point, so that people should know you're allowed to speak Lashon Kodesh. Then he said, Pischu Pamaychu Vafiku Havla. That he said, now that he already said in Aramaic, because this was already good advice for common people, and Rabbi Yehuda wanted the other people that were in the mikveh with him to hear and understand the advice. The two requests that he made of his shamas are really not relevant to anybody around. So he said it in Lashon Kodesh to make a point that you're allowed to speak in Lashon Kodesh. The other items which he wanted to make sure people around him understood, he said purposely in Aramaic. And he said, open your mouth and let the steam out. What does that mean? Nami Kadesh Shmuel, the Amr Shmuel, Havla Mapik Havla. When you inhale the hevel, the steam of the mikveh, that forces the inner steam of your body, which is not good, out. So it's like an oil change, I guess. Drinking the mikveh water, my mel yusa. I never felt like I was low on hair or low on dandruff. Why would I need to drink water from the mikveh? The Tanya, if you ate and you didn't drink, is eating this blood, meaning Rashi says it doesn't help him. You have to eat and you have to drink together. And this is the first way to start having an upset stomach, by eating and not drinking. If you ate and you fell asleep by the table and you didn't walk 4 amas before you went to sleep, rather than your system digesting it properly, it just rots inside, because you have to walk at least 4 amas before you go to sleep. And that causes you to have bad breath. So the cause of bad breath is falling asleep at a table after your meal rather than taking a walk first. And it says bad breath. If someone has to go to the bathroom and he eats before he relieves himself, that's it's like a tanner that you cooked up on top of its old ashes. And I guess that doesn't work so well. That causes you, Rashi says, kol gufoy mizuham b'zeh atomid. You're always smelly and perspiring. You're one big bo. The rachatz b'chamin v'lo. If you, and this is what's relevant to us, if you washed yourself, bathed yourself in warm water, and you didn't drink from that water, that's doimul the tanner shesikumi b'chutz. It's like a tanner where you heat it up on the outside, and you didn't put heat on the inside. The tanner, of course, has to be heated up from the inside. What if you took a hot bath and you didn't rinse yourself out with cold water to close your pores? It's like steel that you put into the fire to heat up the forge. And you didn't right afterwards put it into cold water, which is the complete sheen of the forging process.
Sorry, yes. Are you saying before it's beneficial to drink the bath water you're bathing in?
I didn't say that.
I'm saying that's what the
You
Gemara
said
is
that.
saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do not, I repeat, do not try that at home.
I'm just trying to figure out what the thought is there. Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure, and I don't even want to try it out to actually feel that benefit. That's one benefit I'm going to have to pass on. I wonder if you're allowed to drink other water, but it says you have to drink from the water that you're bathing in. I don't know how it works, but I actually want
to make a shackle.
You have to make a shackle. I want to ask Chaim Tzvi to unmute himself, and I want to ask Chaim Tzvi to remind us about the chabur he said about the Rambam's approach to the remedies in the Torah, the Gemara, and the Gra's opinion of it. Could you remind us what you said? Chaim Tzvi, are you there?
I'm here. Just so that I could speak coherently and properly, give me a day, even though it might be off subject, and I'll come better prepared.
Because I remember you quoted from the Shulchan Aruch that quotes the Rambam that says certain things are not Ma'aseh Kshafim, even though they don't work, even though they don't really work. Some of the refusim, even though they don't really work, it's not usher to do. And the Gra
right, but the Rambam, the Rambam is a heavyweight, and I don't want to misquote him, and make an outlaw more than anything else.
Okay, so when you refresh your memory, I'd love to hear that because it's very relevant to this Gemara. Because
I don't know if the Gemara is saying that you're drinking from the bath water. It says rachatz b'cham. You wash yourself with shasa mehen. He said, I don't know. The art scroll says hot water. It doesn't say the bath water. Yeah.
Okay, but even this is something that the Gemara is telling us certain things of health issues that don't seem to be consistent with our current day medicine. So lest us even have a havamina to doubt it, I wanted to reinforce what Chaim Tzvi said over from the Vilna Gaon, just to keep us on the straight and narrow. So,
just to not let out the cat out of the bag of what Reb Shmuel Klein's going to discuss tomorrow, but he told me that during the bubonic plague, nobody bathed. Bathing was looked at as something that's bad for you. Since there was a smell, they used the equivalent of baby powder, which is that old yeshiva trick that Bochum didn't have.
It doesn't work.
That's right. But I take it that this is where the start of it was, that people looked at bathing as possibly
because they thought there was the water was poisoned. Why would they bathe in it? They
drink the water from the mikveh, it is poisoned.
Yeah. But in the Middle Ages, the disease came from the drinking water.
Okay.
He told me about bathing in general. That it was already not accustomed, not only during the plague, but well before that already, people stopped bathing. Hundreds of years, people didn't look at bathing, not in the Jewish community, but in the community at large, nobles and serfs alike.
Bathing as opposed to showering?
No, but just in general,
just
washing oneself.
So probably everybody had to wear face masks. The stench was probably
unless they used shemen amora, unless they started in oils to try.
They should have used balsam oil. Then you can slide them up, and they're all gone. Okay, so to Gemara weiter.
When the Shulchan Aruch paskins, when the Shulchan Aruch paskins that you cannot make a brocha in front of a goy, it was literally making a brocha in front of an animal. I mean, that's the main reason why the Shulchan Aruch paskined like that, because people stunk in Europe.
Could be.
I mean, goyim stunk. They didn't take showers. Water was very difficult to come by. It was expensive, unless you were living near a river, and the river was actually, and it was actually summertime or springtime. It was difficult to bathe. It's very possible. What I mean to say is that the Shulchan Aruch paskined that way because it was like making a bracha in front of a horse. Where
I don't know until the 1920s. I don't know how anybody made a bracha on the street. Yeah, with all the horse and buggies.
I remember when I lived in the Mir, the Europeans thought that cologne masks BO, and I can tell you firsthand it doesn't, and it was dreadful. It was dreadful. I could barely learn in the Mir. Okay, so to more weiter. Rachas bechamen willen in staat verzorgen. What if you didn't cool yourself off? If you take a bath, but you don't smear beforehand, it's like pouring water over a barrel. No water is going to get inside. So you have to moisturize before, which is interesting because most people moisturize after the bath. So I just want to look at Tosfos. Tosfos actually discusses it. Tosfos says, "The you're not garish that he didn't bathe before. Because in all of our shas you see that we actually wash before we moisturize. By Rus, she was supposed to first bathe and then put on moisturizing when she went to see Boaz. You could say those psukim are referring to the sicha it wasn't the sicha that's normally supposed to be done before your bath. It was putting on perfume. So Tosha says it's possible that people moisturize after they bathe and before they bathe as well. Okay, now we're getting into new types of cooking appliances and how they affect Shabbos. So a mulyar is like a cup and a saucer. Imagine if you had a cup and a saucer, but it wasn't two separate kalim. It was one keli. Your cup and your saucer were bonded together. And what they would do is, in the saucer, instead of putting sugar cubes, in the saucer they put coals. And they put water in the cup. So this way, the coals in the cup would heat up the water. The coals in the saucer would heat up the water in the cup. So what if you had that? And it was gore. If you've already taken the coals out of it, but the water inside the cup is piping hot. Shabbos9 B'Omer b'Shabbos. You're allowed to drink from it on Shabbos. Atichi, alpha pisha prufa, and atichi is a different type of keli, and I'll explain shortly what it is. Even though it's just so much heat in it, even if the coals are taken out, ain't Shabbos9 B'Omer, you cannot drink from it. So we're in the Sunsi. There's two different options for what atichi is. One shot is it's a keli with a double bottom. So in the lower receptacle, you put coals in, and in the upper receptacle, you put water in, and the coals were burning right underneath the water receptacle, so it heated it up really well. And there was another pshat that it was on a kira. They used to have accessories, just like you have a Bosch mixer, you can have a grinding accessory, you have all these different accessories. So on the kira, which we know is a stove that has two pot positions, on the side of that stove, they would build out a little shelf, and that shelf had two compartments. In one compartment, they would put coal. In the other compartment, they would put water, and they used it as a kettle. So besides their kira, which was always hot that they cooked on, they had like a little mini kettle built right onto the kira, and that being that it's heated all the time, because even if it's not cooking water, but the kira is always kept hot, it's very, very hot. So that's the two different pshatim that we're going to momentarily learn in the Gemara for what an atichi means. Zok Gemara, hechi dami mulyar. What exactly is this mulyar hagarf? Zok Gemara, Tana we learned, mayim mi b'fnim, u'gecholim mi b'chutz. Like we said, it's a cup and a saucer that are bonded together. The coals are on the outside around the cup, and there's water inside the cup. Antichi, what's an antichi? Which clearly has a lot more heat. Rab Omer Beikiri. It's Beikiri, which is what I described, a little shelf that's an add-on accessory to a kira that allows you to heat water. And Reb Menachem Mendel Hakohen Beidudi. It's a double-bottomed kois where you put heat underneath the water. Man the Amar Beidudi, the person who says that a Beidudi, you're not, who says that a Beidudi, you're not allowed to drink from, even though it's score for cotton. Kolshkin Bekiri, surely a Bekiri, which is even hotter than a Beidudi. A Bekiri is much hotter because it's part of a kira which always stays hot. Surely you wouldn't be able to use that on Shabbos. Mandamar Bekiri, but the Mandamar holds that this antichi that was usher was a Bekiri, which is the hottest type of water kettle. Aval Beidudi, a double bottom keli, loy, that would not be usher. Tanya Kavasa de Reb Nachman, we learned a brayso which supports what Reb Nachman said to the Beidudei, because it said antichi aval pisha kruva ktuma eishois nimena epnei shenechushta mechamamta, because its floor heats it up. If we're talking about a floor of something, heating it up, that means we have two layers. We have the keli, and then we have another area underneath the keli where we cook up coals. So you see that the Brisa seems to support Reb Nachman that this antichi is a double bottom keli. Now, Tosfos has an obvious question over here. Did we not learn that it's only, we look like Hananya. Hananya learns that for Shehiyah, even if it's not Gar for Katan, you're allowed to leave water on the stove. So here we have a cup, the mulyar, and the Mishnah says if the coals are taken off, then Shoshim the Mendel b'Shabbos. Why can't you use it on Shabbos even if the coals are still on? It shouldn't have to be Garf, shouldn't have to be Katan. That's what the Chananya holds. You don't need a blech if you're just making Shehiyah. So there's a long time.
Isn't that only by Kira? Isn't that?
Why should this be any different?
Did he hold by Tanner also? By Tanner, he also held the same thing.
No, Tanner is more common because it's much hotter. But clearly, the Antuchi, which is also, even though it's group of Ktuma, is part of Akira. So the Mulyar is even less.
Because it's part of Akira. Okay, got it.
So Rashi says that it has to do with Atmana. Rashi appears because this the Visha Ein Moshe Hevel El Meshamer Umakayim Chaim Shalahen. It holds its seat. Antichi afilu grufa in Shoshim Mimeno Levisha Moshe Hevel. It's like Atmana b'Moshe Hevel. Vein near the Lashayach Lemigzah b'Moshe Hevel El Batmana. We're not talking about Atmana here. We don't have anything insulated. So the whole concept of Moshe Hevel does not apply to this Shiloh. It only applies to Atmana. Rashi, in other places, says as well that the concept of Moshe Hevel applies to Shehi as well. But Tosfos doesn't like that. It doesn't make sense to say that the Mishnah is speaking that you did an Isser, because it says, that means it's mashma you did an Isser, and because it was Atmana, Rashi learns there was Atmana here, but even though there's Atmana here, you're allowed to drink from it. It doesn't make sense to say that there was a problem here. And here's the main kasha. It seems to say that an antichi, even if you took out the coals, it's still going to be usher to drink from it on Shabbos. If you learn that the first Mishnah of Kira is speaking about a lahachzer like Chananya, then mashin afilu be'enegarf. Then you're allowed to make shehiyah even if you left the coals in. So why in the world is it usher over here? So Tosfos ends up saying a whole different shot. It's not a question as if you're allowed to you drink the water. The nearer kafir a first that mulyar agor of Shoshim and B'Shabbos, what it means is shemoizgin hamayim chamim b'yayin. The question is not if you're allowed to drink from it. Avada, you're allowed to drink from it, because according to Hanani, you're allowed to make shia even without gor for katan. The question is, could you pour this hot water into wine on Shabbos? Lavisha hamayim enim kol kach chamin b'mulyar sheyispashal hayayim in hamayim shemoizgin l'soichel. The whole question is, if you pour hot water from these kalim into wine, is the water that you're pouring hot enough to cook the wine? So from a mulyar hagorov, the water would not be hot enough to cook the wine. Avantichi afapishak rufa in shoysh nimena vishantichi yesh behebel yoser umispashal hayayin min hamayim l'shas meziga. The antichi has water in it that's so hot that if you pour water from it, even if it's gorah for cotton, into some wine, it's going to cook the wine. So it's a whole different shaila than what the Brisa seems to, than what the Mishnah seems to be talking about, and that is whether or not you're allowed to keep water or take water from it on Shabbos. So there's two mahalchim. There's Tosfos mahalach. That's a question of pouring this water into wine, or Rashi's mahalach. It's a shaila if you're allowed to use this water at all. Let's see the next one. Hamechem shepinu. Hamechem is a samovar. It's like a jug of water that you keep on the fire to cook up. So what happens if you took a mechem shepinu? Now we're going to soon see there's two pshatim in what pinu means. Either it means you took it off the stove and it's still full of water, or it means you took the water out of it. And when we learn the Gemara, we'll see those two pshatim. You're not allowed to put cold water into it, in order to warm up the cold water. But you are allowed to put it in. Again, this mission makes no sense until the Gemara will explain it. you're allowed to put hot water into a kos, which is a kli sheni, to take away some of the cold. So if I have a hot kli sheni, and I'm allowed to pour cold water into it to warm up that cold water a little bit. So really the only line of this mission that I'm explaining is oile soicha kos kedelav shirin. You're allowed to put cold water into a kli sheni that's full of hot water to warm up somewhat the cold water. Mike Omer, what in the world is the Mishnah talking about? Amar Bada Bar Masna, Hachik Omer. This is what the Mishnah means. Hamechem shepina mimenu mayim chamin. So we're talking about this kettle that you took all the hot water out of it. So you have a kettle whose walls are piping hot. It just came off the fire, but there's no water left in this kettle. So the halacha is lo yitin l'soiche mayim mu'atim. Don't pour a small amount of cold water into this kettle on Shabbos, to warm it up. Because if I have a kettle that I just took off the fire and I pour out the hot water, and now I have a boiling hot kettle, if I pour some cold water into it, a little bit, that cold water will become very hot just from the residual heat in the walls of the kettle. So you're not allowed to pour a little bit of water, because a little bit of water will get heated up. You're allowed to flush it out with a lot of water, because that will not allow the water to cook, but it will just warm it up a little bit. And the Meforshim explained that avada, if you're pouring in a lot of water, you're not allowed to pour it in as a trickle, because the first trickle that goes in is going to get cooked. You have to dump it in one fell swoop, so that there's so much cold water coming in to the kettle that it does not have a chance to heat it up at all. Correct the Gemara. You've dealt with the problem of cooking water. Very good. But there's another problem. If you take a boiling hot keli and you quickly flush it with cold water, what you're doing, although inadvertently, you're strengthening the keli, which is makah b'patish, because the way they would strengthen kelim is they would heat it up till the point, Rashi says, where the metal actually softened, and then they would flush it with cold water, which would cool it suddenly, and that would forge it, that would harden it. So here, you have a boiling hot keli, you're flushing it with cold water, which you say is mutter, because it's not going to heat the water, but the problem is that water is going to forge the keli, and now you have another problem of makah b'patish. How could the Mishnah allow you to do that? So to the Gemara Reb Shimoni, our Mishnah will follow the shita of Reb Shimon. The Amar Davar she'ein mischaven mutter. Reb Shimon holds, if you do a malacha, but that was not your intent. So here I am forging, I am strengthening the walls of the keli by flushing it with cold water, but that's not my intent. My intent is just to warm up the water a little bit. So Davar she'ein mischaven, even if it's a psikration, it's for sure going to happen, but it's a psikration to loy, I don't want that to happen. I'm not interested in that happening. It's just happening as a byproduct of what I'm doing. Reb Shimon holds that that's mutter. Maskav Abaye. Abaye doesn't like at all the way the first approach to the Mishnah was. Because the first approach says that it's a mechem shepineu, meaning you took all the water out of the mechem. Amar Abaye, midin mechem shepina mimenu mayim katani. It doesn't say in the Mishnah that you have a mechem that you took the water out of it. It says mechem shepineu katani, which seems to indicate that you took a kettle that was full of water off the stove, but the water is still in the kettle. So I'm going to learn Zok Abaye a totally different pshat in the Mishnah. You just took a boiling kettle off the stove. Don't pour a little bit of cold water into this kettle so that the little bit of cold water that you're going to add to the kettle will get cooked up. You can put a whole lot of cold water added to this kettle that has hot water in it, just to warm it up. A. And B. And what about how you learned the Mishnah? What about that case? If you have a mechem that you took the water out of it, you're not allowed to put any water into it at all. You know why? I hold there is a problem of mitzaref, even though there was a davar shloim mechaven. You know why? Because Reb Yehuda, I hold like Reb Yehuda, the Amar davar she'ein mischaven also. So therefore, you're never allowed to put a lot of cold water into a hot kettle that's empty, because there's a problem of a davar she'ein mischaven. You're strengthening the keli, even though that's not your intention. Amar Rav, lo shonu elo hafsher. That we say you're allowed to pour water in is to is to warm it up. Avalat also, but you're not allowed to pour water in specifically to strengthen the keli, because that's mamash hamalacha of makim b'patish. Shmuel Omer afilu l'tzaref nami muter. Even allowed to lechatchila pour water into a keli for the purpose of forging the keli, which is a malacha deraisa. In fact, the more l'tzaref lechatchila mishari, how can you say it's allowed? It's a malacha of makim b'patish. You must have quoted this machlekes Rav and Shmuel wrong, and this is really what the machlekes is. You're only allowed to pour enough water into this keli that will only allow the water to become warm, but won't forge the keli. But putting in more water, which would be the shear of water required to forge the keli, that would be usher. And Rashi says that in order to forge the keli, you have to fill up the water all the way to the top, because the whole keli got weakened when it was on the fire. In order to strengthen the whole keli and cool it off suddenly, you'd have to fill it up with water all the way to the top. That you wouldn't be allowed to do. But you would be allowed to fill it up with a lot of water that would warm the water up without cooking it. Even if I put in enough water that could be mitzaref, it's still mutter, because it's a davar she'ein mechaven. Lememra, the Shmuel, Reb Shimon Svirle, that means that Shmuel must hold like Reb Shimon, and Reb Shimon holds that a davar she'ein mechaven is mutter, like we discussed on Amud Beis.
Sorry, Yossi.
Yes.
According to Rashi Pshat, you have to fill up the whole thing. So according to Bai, if there's water already in it, then how would that be possible to be sorry for it?
I guess the area that was not filled, the top of the kettle, which is where you're adding water, that area of the kettle would have become softened, and you're filling it up with water to harden that part of the kettle.
And in general, do we have any idea what the shear are? Like what's a little and what's a lot?
No.
Okay.
It really depends on your assessment, because you'd have to be sure that the water wouldn't become yartzeit ledes. So the target number is yartzeit ledes, which I believe is 104. So if you pour water in and you're sure that it will not become 104, then you're allowed to do it. But I wouldn't feel comfortable making that assessment and pouring water in, because I don't know if I'm going to pour enough or not. But if you can actually calculate that and know exactly how much water you have to pour in and how quickly to pour it in, then, and you know for sure that it's not going to reach yartzeit ledes, you'd be allowed to.
Yeah, sure.
So to go more weiter. How could you say that we're following the shita of Reb Shimon, who holds davar she'ein mechaben is mutter, but Amar Shmuel, but Shmuel said mechaben. So before I read the case, we're going to prove that Shmuel holds that a malacha shen shvicha legufa is also. So again, the Gemara is asking the following question: how could you say Shmuel holds like Reb Shimon that a davar she'ein mechaben is mutter? He argues with Reb Shimon and he holds a malacha shen shvicha legufa is also. So in other words, how could you say that Shmuel agrees with Reb Shimon by apples? He argues on Reb Shimon by oranges. A very funny kasha. But let's see the Gemara inside. The Amar Shmuel mechaben gachelesh shel matches b'shus harabim b'shus shel yizuka b'harabim. Imagine there's a red-hot glowing piece of metal on the street in front of a shul, and there's kids playing outside, and we're afraid someone can touch that and get burnt. So you're allowed to cool it off. You're allowed to do whatever you need to do to cool down that metal so that it shouldn't be a public nuisance. You would not be allowed to do that if the gecheles was made out of ace. What's the difference? A gecheles of steel, hot steel, is not considered ace. So even if you're cooling it off, it's not called kibui. That would be a malacha deraisa. At most, it's a derabanan. So the Rabbanan would waive the prohibition to cool off hot metal in order to protect the public. But the gecheles shel, which is an actual fire, which means it actually is doing an is it a rise? You're putting out a fire that the Rabbanan would not waive, because they can't waive a malacha deraisa, even though it's to protect the public. So you see clearly from here that Shmuel argues with Reb Shimon, because we saw Reb Shimon afilu shel nami, even b'shel it should be mutter, because it's a malacha shen shvicha legufa. The only reason why you would do kibui for a constructive purpose is to improve the wick, to make a good wick. You put it out, you light it up, you put it out. Every other putting out a fire is only malacha shen shvicha legufa, because I'm putting it out for a reason other than what the normal malacha would be. I'm putting it out to save the sakana. So So the Gemara is asking, again, how could you say that Shmuel holds like Reb Shimon by apples if here by oranges, Shmuel does not hold like Reb Shimon? Dr. Gemara, that same teretz. But Dovish ein mischaven, savalach Reb Shimon, but Malacha shen shvicha lagufa, savalach Reb Yehuda. Very simple. Now, what's the Havamina? The Havamina is this long Tosfos. It's a long Tosfos, and I don't even have clarity in what Tosfos' teretz is. But Tosfos does mental calisthenics to help us understand what the Havamina of the Gemara is as to why it would equate the two. But at the end, the maskana of the Gemara is you can't equate the two, and Shmuel can pass on like Reb Shimon that a Dor Shein Mechaven is mutter, but he could disagree with Reb Shimon by a malacha shen shvicha luv. Amar Ravina Hilchach therefore koach b'shus harabim. If there's a thorn in Rishus harabim, a spike that could injure somebody, ma'lichai pachas midal ramas. You cannot be over a deraisa by carrying a dal ramas b'shus harabim, but you are allowed to move it even though it's muksa. Your Rabbanan will waive the Isra Muksa and allow you to move it each time in increments of less than 4 amas, so you're not dealing with a deraisa. But if a Carmelis, if it was in a Mokim, where carrying is only Asami Rabbanan, Afilu Tuva, then they would allow you to move it as much as you want. Because you're allowed to be over the Rabbanans to protect an Isra. So the Chashuk Echemed has a very interesting shaila that actually came up in Eretz Yisrael. They found a landmine right near where people were. And the shaila was, there's 3 ways you can approach dealing with a landmine on Shabbos. A is you can have the guy who finds it stands there till the end of Shabbos, making sure no one gets near it. B is you could put a fence around it and say, don't touch it. That's like riding Machbet Gomer on your milk. That's going to attract every kid in the neighborhood. And the third thing you could do is call the army and call the sappers to take it away. And the Paskin, I think it was a Mitzvah Paskin, that Avada, you're supposed to call the sappers and take it away because it's a Shaila of a Sakam. And there wouldn't be deraisas involved either. Should we go a little weiter? Today's daf, if I'm not mistaken, was...
Yes, even if it's a deraisa. If it's a konis nefashis, I don't understand.
Well, no, because there's other ways to deal with it. You can have someone stand there a whole Shabbos. Right? There were other ways. There were other possibilities to deal with it. So if I'm not mistaken, today's daf is Mem Gimel. Mem Beis was Friday. So if the other month, I can at least try to get half the blood, and it's not difficult tomorrow. Or if the other month we could stop, whatever the other prefers.
I'm okay.
I'm okay to go.
Okay, we're okay with 7:20 tomorrow morning, right?
Sunday tomorrow. 7:20?
Yeah, yes. I think so.
We usually do 8 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's okay.
Unusual. Well, 8 o'clock is. Some people want to do nates, right? You want to daven nates. That was the point, right? When there's minions.
Right,
Nates, 7:20 has nothing to do with nates.
Yes,
Nates
I
do at 7
thought
o'clock.
Monty was worried about nates. Right, I forgot. Monty was worried about nates.
Yes, Monty was nates.
Nates, then let's do the share 6:45.
Well, Nate's is 6.
No, I keep thinking of people who plan to get up for Nate and sleep in.
Right, that's right. This 7:20 was a compromise. If you want to do Nate's, so then you can manage the 7:20.
Seriously, is anybody doing Nates and they want it at 7:20?
Well, you could daven Nates and learn at 8 o'clock also.
The Havamin is to do Nates, that's for sure.
Yeah,
it's always my intention.
All right. I'm happy to learn at 8. Does it mess up your schedule, Akiva?
No.
I'd like to be finished by 8:30.
Okay, so 7:30.
If possible.
7:20.
So if we start at 7:20, then we can learn till 8:30, and we can even get some catch up.
Okay, you're the boss.
You're running the show. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right. I got to run.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay, so 7:20 tomorrow.
So, but we should let's continue now anyway.
Let's do a little bit more. Yeah, let's do a little more now.
It's easy.
Let's go for Mishnah.
Taner Rabban. It says Abel Noisen. You're allowed to put the Kushina. Taner Rabban. Noisen Adam Chaman L'Tzoich Tzoinen. You're allowed to put hot water into Tzoinen, into cold water. But the Loya Tzoinen L'Tzoich Chaman. But you're not allowed to put cold water into hot water. Now in Hilchos, in Hilchos Basar B'Cholav and Taruvas, there's a shaila of a law gover or tatal gover. We paskin that if you have a vessel you have a pot full of hot meat, and you pour cold milk on it. We say Tatah Gavar, which means the hot dominates, and you cooked basar b'chol. On the other hand, if you had cold meat and you had hot milk, and you poured hot milk onto the cold meat, we say Lo Gavar, and we say it doesn't cook, only Kedei Klipa. So Rashi learns, Sham this Beishamai, is that you're allowed to put chamen l'tei chatzoinen because it doesn't cook. Because you say Tatah Gavar, the bottom vessel, the bottom pot, which is cold, that's dominant. But the chamen, you can't pour cold into hot because that's going to allow the cold to become cooked. Tosfos actually argues on Rashi, and Tosfos says you can't compare Hilchos Bishul on Shabbos to what's considered cooked lagabe basar b'chol. And Tosfos says the norm is that if you have a pot of hot water, a pot of something, you pour something into it, there's going to be a lot more stuff in the pot than what you're pouring into the pot. So since there's a lot more on the bottom, if the bottom is cold, it's not going to cook. And if the bottom is hot and you pour a little cold water into it, it will cook. So Tosfos holds that it's not connected to Lo Gavar and Tatah Gavar, but Rashi seems to connect the two. So let's see what the Gemara says. That's what Bisham says. It doesn't matter. Bein chamen l'soich hatzoinin uvein tzoin l'soich chamen. Either way, that's going to be mutter. Bamed davar mamurim b'kois. This machlokes is only in the kois, which Rashi says is it's l'shtia kaboy. You're doing it to drink, so you're not going to have it so hot because you're going to burn yourself if you drink something that's so hot. And the second reason why a kois should be more lenient is because a kois is a klisheni. It's not right on the fire. Aval bambati, if it's a bath that was directly heated, which means it would be a klirishin, and people like a geshmaka haisa mikveh, so we would actually bathe in water that's hotter than water that we would drink. Chamen l'sech hatzoinin. Then everybody agrees that you're allowed to pour chamen into tzoinin, but not tzoinin l'sech chamen, which is like Beishamai Shita. Reb Shimon ben Menashe oiser, he holds everything is also. Even Rashi says even chamen into tzoinin. So now we're going to get down to some nitty gritty. Omar Menachem, halacha Reb Shimon ben Menashe. The halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Menashe, which means that you cannot pour chamen into tzoinin, nor can you put tzoinin into chamen, even by an ambati.
Not by klisheni, right?
I'm sorry.
Not by klisheni. Is that? This is only by.
Well, the Gemara said. Let's go back. The Gemara said, Reb Shimon ben Menashe oiser, Reb Shimon asers even chamen l'tzarech tzoinin. He holds everything would be aser, and he seems to be talking about Tashish is speaking about ambati.
Okay, thank you.
So Reb Nachman said Allah is like Reb Shimon ben Menashe. Now,
but a close would be fine.
I think so. But we're going.
It's like adding cold water to hot tea.
Correct. So Savar Reb Yosef Lamemar, Reb Yosef held to say, Seifel Harei Kambati. Now there's a cup that you drink from, it's a klisheni. There's an ambati which you heat directly, it's a built-in pool, and then you can use something called a basin. A basin you use to wash with. It's portable, it's a klisheni, but it's something that you're washing with. So Reb Yosef wanted to say that a seifel has the same chumrah as an ambati. We're afraid it'll be very, very hot, and therefore you can't pour any cold into hot or hot into cold. Amalei Abaye, Tani Reb Chia, seifel einik ambati. Reb Chia actually learned the opposite of what you're saying, Reb Yosef, that a seifel is not like an ambati. A seifel is like a kois, and you're allowed to pour hot into cold, cold into hot. I'm sorry, according to this hill, you're allowed to pour cold into hot and hot into cold. Before Reb Abaye corrected it with Reb Chia's quote, Reb Yosef thought to say that a seifel, a basin, you wouldn't be able to put any water into it, not cold into hot, not cold into hot, not hot into cold, not cold into hot, and not hot into cold. If that's the case, we have a problem. Because Reb Nachman halacha Reb Shimon ben Menashe, Reb Nachman said halacha Reb Shimon ben Menashe, which would mean in a basin you cannot add cold water into hot, nor can you add hot water into cold. So if that's the case, we discussed already earlier that everybody agrees that on Shabbos you're allowed to wash with hot water, panov, yodov, v'raglav. You're allowed to wash your face, your hands, and your feet. Now Rashi takes us through a Talmudic logistical sequence. And Rashi, how would it be possible to wash your hands, face, and feet if you didn't have a hot basin. In an ambati, there's nothing to talk about. But even in a basin, the basin would normally be filled with really, really hot water before Shabbos, water that would be so hot that you wouldn't be able to bathe with it, even panav yodav v'raglav. So you would have to pour some cold water into it to temper it. So based on that logistical sequence, if you're going to tell me that into a basin, you're not even allowed to mix any cold water into the hot water of a basin, so how is it ever possible to wash your panav yodav v'raglav that everybody seems to hold you allowed to do? Practically speaking, how is it possible to do that? Your basin will be way too hot, and you'll never be able to mix cold water into it. Now, for some reason, Rashi doesn't consider waiting a couple of hours until the water in the basin cools off. Rashi assumes that the only way you'd be able to wash with this water in the basin is by mixing cold water into it. And if you're never allowed to mix cold water into a hot water basin, or vice versa, how would you ever be able to wash your hands and your face? How would you ever come onto water that was just the right temperature to wash your hands and face with?
I thought that the washing your hands and face was only water that was heated before Shabbos.
We're talking about water that was heated before Shabbos. But that water is so hot, you still need to mix some cold water into it. And since Reb Shimon ben Menashe,
even this case here is also talking about before Shabbos.
Yes. But Reb Shimon ben Menashe is saying you're not even allowed to mix cold water into a basin that has hot water on it. So your water will be too hot. And like I said, for some reason, the Gemara doesn't consider that you're going to wait until the water is the right temperature. The Gemara is assuming that you have piping hot water, that the only way you can use it is by diluting it with cold water. And if you're going to learn that a seivel is like an ambati and you're never able to cool that water off, then it's impossible to ever wash your hands and face. Zok to Gemara, that's only if you're learning that Reb Shimon ben Menashe was going on the ambati. Mi Savzers, Reb Shimon ben Menashe Seifakoi, who said that Reb Shimon ben Menashe's halacha that says Oyser is going on the ambati and saying it's always Oyser, maybe a Reishakoi, maybe he's going back on a Kois. And what he's saying is the original Brisa said, which was what Beishamai said. And Basil said, Ben Chamel Sechatzonin, Ben Turn Sechamel would be mutter. And maybe on that is what Reb Shimon ben Menashe commented. And he said, Basil Material Ben Chamel Sechatzonin, Ben Turn Sechamen, Reb Shimon ben Menashe Oyser Turn Sechamen. Maybe Reb Shimon ben Menashe is just arguing on Basil, and he's saying that Sonin Sechamen by a kois is Osir. But Chamel Sechatzonin will be mutter. Zok Gemara, if you want to say that Reb Shimon ben Menashe is saying that Sonyin L'Seichamin is also by a kois, well then Lemer Reb Shimon ben Menashe Damar K'Beis Shammai. That's exactly what Beis Shammai said, that you're not allowed to mix Tonyin into Chamin, but you're allowed to mix Chamin into Tonyin. So that's exactly what Beis Shammai said. So are you telling me that Reb Shimon ben Menashe means to pass him like Beis Shammai? Zok Gemara, no, that's not what he means to say. Hachi Kamar, L'Nechleku Beis Shammai U'Besilu B'Dover Haseh. The way he would learn in the Havmina was, again, let's go back to the Brisa. Noisin Adam Chamel L'Seichatzonian V'Lo Toin L'Seichachamin Diver B'Shamai. U'Besilu Ayman Bein Chamel L'Seichatzonian is allowed. U'Bein Toin L'Seichachamin is allowed. Zok Reb Shimon ben Menashe, you're wrong. Whoever you are, Kana, quoting Basil, you're wrong. Basil does not argue on Beis Shammai. I hold Basil is masking to Beis Shammai that you're only allowed to put Chamel L'Seichatzonian, but you're not allowed to pour Tonyan into Chamel. Zok Gemara Vater. Amar Rav Huna B'Rei Rabbi Yeshua. Chazina Leila Rava, the Lekapot Amana. I saw that the way Rava acts, I watched him operate on Shabbos, and I saw that he is not makpid about pouring cold water into a hot cup. And I know where he got it from, because he got it from here. Noisen Adam Kisan Sholmayim, L'Soich Seifel Sholmayim. If I have a little bottle of, I'm thinking of have a water bottle, I'm allowed to put the water bottle into a barrel of water. Bein chaman l'seichatzonian, bein tzon l'seichaman. If I have a hot water bottle and I want to cool it off, I'm allowed to put it into a barrel of cold water, and the water bottle will get cooled off. Or if I have a cold water bottle and I want to heat it up, I'm allowed to put it into a hot barrel of water to heat it up. I'm allowed to do that. So you see, Rava got it from Reb Chia that he could mix the waters. Amalei Rav Huna Rav Ashi, there's no riot from that case. The mifs the kli. Over there, you're not actually pouring cold water into hot water, Over there, you're taking a bottle and you're putting it in. So the bottle is a hefsek. So maybe there's no cooking there. But if you directly pour cold water into hot water, how do you know that you're allowed to do that?
So you're allowed to put a baby bottle into hot water?
According to Rava, for sure you're allowed to. Yeah, but into a klisheni, yes, you'd be allowed to, without a question.
Well, klisheni anyways, you'll be able to.
Yeah, a klisheni you shouldn't be able to.
Why don't we say the same heter?
I'm sorry?
Why don't we say it's different? Is it when it's one vessel?
This is a klisheni. We're talking here about klishenis here. What Kosh Rashi said is a klisheni.
It's off the fire, so it's called the klisheni, or it was poured from a klisheni?
No, it was probably poured from the pot, because normally the kosh is not right on the fire. And I think we're talking about kosh over here. Zok Gemara, Omer le ma'ira itmar. That brisa you didn't quote right. The brisa actually means directly pouring the water in, because it says ma'ira adam kisun shlomayim l'soich seifel shlomayim bein chamen bein chamen l'soich tzoyin bein tzoyin l'soich chamen. But I think this is all klishenis. I actually did a lot of homework on making a coffee. Reb Moshe Paskins halacha l'maisa. It's 100% mutter to take water from the chaynik, so your cup is a klisheni, and you can put your coffee, your sugar, you can put and your milk into it, no problem. Zok Reb Moshe, I grade for myself a machmer on a klishlishi. And how do I make a coffee, Zok Reb Moshe? I don't even want to pour this. I don't want to take the cup of the klisheni, pour it into a klishlishi, and then put the coffee in. Because there's also an extra chumrah that I want to keep for myself of tzeveya. I don't want to use the coffee to color the water. So what I do, Dr. Moshe, is I take the water from the chaynik into a klisheni, and then what I do is I put the coffee into the klishlishi, and I pour from the klisheni into the klishlishi. So I'm not pouring the coffee into the water, I'm pouring the water into the coffee. Now it seems like in our shul, a lot of people are makbid on it, only in our shul, because only in our shul do they leave cups hanging around. You come Shabbos morning to shul, and there's cups everywhere with a drop of water in it, which really frustrates me. At home, I don't believe they do that. Their wives would throw them out on their heads. They wouldn't know what hit them if they did that. And someone once told me that never in my life did I ever have a coffee that I like, because I love coffee with 2 sugars. At home, where I have to pay for the sugar, I only forgive myself 1. In shul, where it's free, I put in 3. So I never really had the coffee that I really like. I never had a coffee with 2 sugars. So getting back to the cups, Reb Moshe Paskins, halach l'maisa, that if you had hot water in a cup and I poured it out, and now there's some driplets left inside, you do not have to wipe the cup out. You can use that and pour it from a klirishin right into there without any problem. So even those who want to keep
Why?
Because once it was cooked, he said it's not a problem. So if you come to the Agudah and you see a cup that somebody else uses as klisheni and there's a drop of it, you don't have to put it aside and let it clutter the kitchen and waste the shul's cups. You can just take that cup, even though the water's cold, and you can use that as your klisheni, and you can still make a klishishi. So even though you want to make a klishishi, it's in the height. Even though Moshe says you don't have to. But even if you want to do it, at least reuse the cups that have droplets of water on the bottom. Now, if someone filled it up, a cup with cold water from the sink and then poured it out, that water you're not allowed to put hot water into. But the cups there, you could be soymech, are just the extra klishenis that people used to make the coffee before you. You're allowed to reuse those klishenis according to Reb Moshe without any problem whatsoever. So that's just my personal rant.
Let's say, what about putting the coffee in first? And I don't know what most people do. I prefer putting the coffee in and then the hot water and not vice versa. So in the klisheni, I want to put normally...
Then you're not allowed to do that, because then you're pouring hot water from the klirishin directly on your coffee. Even klirishin is mavashal kedei kli, but that would be a problem.
So you can't do that in a klisheni, but you can do it in a klishlishi.
That's right.
So take one of those cups with the little water on it.
That's right.
And then pour it into your coffee.
So so if there's a little hot water in the klisheni, then add coffee to it. Then it's okay. So there's a little bit of water at the bottom of the cup of the klisheni.
No, you can't. Because if you fill that directly from the chaynik, you have a problem.
Even though that's already water that's already been cooked.
That's correct. Yeah, because the coffee wasn't cooked.
But the coffee was cooked by the hot water that I put in there originally. So I put water in first. Then I add coffee, a little bit of water. Then I add the coffee.
But the little bit of water that was in there is hot or cold?
Let's assume it's hot.
Well, you're putting your coffee into a klisheni.
So let's say it's cold already. Let's say it's cold, a little bit cold.
So then you're taking that cup and you're filling it up with hot water directly from the chaynik. So you're pouring Cleveland water right onto the coffee.
And that's
the coffee's diluted in water.
What you have to do is you have to fill the cup up first and then put your coffee in.
Right, right. Then you add the coffee
Right,
afterwards.
you fill the
it's
cup,
diluted.
put the hot water in first. Now
Yes.
the water's a cliche.
I know, that's
then
what
you
I do.
Put anything you want into it.
No, that's
Or put your coffee and sugar in a cup and then take another cliche and fill it with hot water, then pour it into the cup.
Which is how Reb Moshe used to
What
do
he
it.
said.
Right.
And,
That's
but
what
the only thing I'm saying is that cup that you use a cliche, now that has a little drop of water in it that you left over there, let the next guy use that cup instead of taking a fresh cup.
Okay, so we're looking for donators to write cliche on it, the universal.
I knew he was going with that. That's the next sponsorship.
Just write Chalaf Stam.
There was one. I think I saw the Stiebel in Borough Park I was in. There was a big sign about a cliche. All the signs were in Yiddish. I'll find it on the phone. I'll put it in there. It rhymed. It talked about milk and coffee. So
I know Moshe Sharf doesn't like when people wash their hands and take a whole bunch of paper towels. He feels it wastes the shul's money. People should use one paper towel. So maybe I'll suggest that we stand in the kitchen and tell the oilam that you can reuse the cliche according to Moshe.
In all seriousness, does anyone know how Moshe Sharf is doing? Has anyone seen
I saw him walking on Friday. Has anyone been in contact
on
Wilson.
with him?
On Wilson.
Yeah. He walks back and forth.
He looks fine.
Yeah.
Was he unwell?
No, we haven't seen him around. You know, usually like we're his family. He comes to shul and he gives us, he gives us the updates on when Mashiach is coming.
No, he goes to Starbucks. Still there.
So who heard prophecies? I've been hearing a lot of prophecies. I'd like to share our prophecies. So